Hi, and welcome to That's So Nova. My name is Nova. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial for a bag. It's called the Ava bag from Sallie Tomatoes. Sallie Tomato. I will have all the information on where you can purchase the bag down in the description box. It is an affiliate link, but it also gives you 10% off of the pattern. This bag is a perfect bag for spring. I am feeling super springy right now. It could be that I'm a little over winter. I love winter. I love every season. But I feel like spring is a time for new beginnings, fun, and adventures for everyone. So I think this bag is perfect for someone that likes to hike, or they like to travel and want an overnight bag. If someone has kids and they want to have have cool new backpacks to go back to school for the spring, or an overnight night bag for your grandparents, or just to have a bag to put your laptop in and go back and forth to work with. This is a perfect all-together bag. It doesn't have a ton of components, but the components it does have are very unique and make the bag super special. So what you're going to need definitely is you're going to need hardware. You're going to need two 1.5 inch rings. You're going to need two 1.5 inch sliders. Now you could, if you don't have the webbing to do 1.5 inch, make your straps, and or you can reduce the hardware down to 1 inch. You're going to need an O-ring, which is going to be what connects your bags to the straps, as well as you will need a buckle and a buckle release. You can do the buckles with a buckle release, or you can do a actual metal buckle and go with what's in the bag pattern. So let's get into it. We're going to start on page 2. So this is one of the angles that you're going to be in. You're going to take your pattern pieces that they have, and you're going to round out your lining piece M, and your base and your flap, and your base and this flap. Once you do that, you're going to start basting your stabilizers on. First, we're going to be basting on our stabilizer for the bottom of the bag. The bottom bag base has three components: the fabric, the stabilizer, as well as the foam. And you have another piece for the lining that will come in later, and this is piece E. So I'm going to take E's lining and put it aside for right now because we don't need it. Before I get started, I like to mark all my centers. And how I do that is I just pop a few clips in. And I just do like a little snip. I don't go more than 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, just a little V. Because no matter what I mark it with, somehow the markings kind of disappear within the project. And then I'm like looking for them later. And it's kind of hard to fold when you have a nice heavy stabilizer in there. So I just fold everything in, find my centers. As you can tell, I rounded out with the templates that are on the back. I traced, then I cut with a nice pair of sharp scissors. All right, so we're going to, what I like to do is kind of find my center, because sometimes I cannot center the stabilizer, and if I do this, it helps me not using my seam ripper later. And trust me, I use it a lot. I'm just going to, using some chalk, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find my centers, and I'm just going to draw a chalk line that's super squeaky. super squeaky, and then just draw that line. You don't have to do this. If you're good at eyeballing it, go for it, but I am not, unfortunately, so you just have to bear with me. Every time I eyeball like rivets or something, it always comes off kilter, and it's frustrating. So to get the frustration out, I just draw lines. And this is for my heavy stabilizer. I put some double-sided tape on the back to help it keep it in place while we stitch. I'm going to line everything up. And see, everything is now centered really well. All right. So then we're going to sew around this at 1/4 of an inch. Now you can draw around and top stitch. I trust my bobbin and its tension, so I'm just going to go from there. I'm going to always start on a straight edge, back stitch, I'm using a 116 needle on my 1541S. I made my first bag on my Juki 5550, which is equivalent to the QVP Mini. This bag is easy to make on a domestic, very domestic friendly, and industrial machine friendly. It all depends on what kind of products you want to use. Okay, we're going to remove these threads, and we have that. Now we're going to place the foam on it, and we're just going to baste this on. You could put a couple of clips if you want to make sure nothing shifts, but it's foam, so if something shifts, you could just trim the foam out. And this particular vinyl that I'm using, it has like the hairs on the back of the microfiber like attach to foam and interfacing really well. It's pretty cool. Okay, trim, and then I'm just going to bring my scissors around to the foam and trim any foam off, so that way I don't accidentally add it to my seam allowance when we get to putting the bag bottom on. All right, we are going to grab our front pocket piece, and we're going to also grab our buckle. I'm going to get the actual buckle. I'm using a 1-inch gold buckle, and I'm going to get the lining piece to the pocket as well. All right, so on this has one layer. I decided to have two because of the simple fact I just like the thickness of it and I just like the consistency. So what we're going to do is there are measurements that on from page 2, preparing the attachment of the buckle, there's measurements of where to measure in from each short edge and each long edge, and we're going to sew around the box and inside the box. 1/8 of an inch around on each side. And I'm just going to remove one of these clips and the back stitch. And I'm going to do the same thing. And these stitches give it a decorative look as well as just a more cohesive look altogether when we're done putting this buckle on. You can hold it down with double-sided tape or like washi tape if it's easier for you. All right, I'm going to just bring the threads in and go into, I'm going to bring these threads in and just snip them, and then we're going to create this little box in the center based off the measurements. If you hear my puppy, I'm sorry. He's in a talkative mood today. Take your time. All right, and we're going to cut out this box that we just cut in. You're not going to cut into your stitch line. We're just going to trim this up. And I'm going to use a little lighter to singe these polyester threads, and I'm just going to cut, but make sure I'm not cutting into my stitches around. It helps with smaller scissors so you can get more accurate. Something with a nice pointed, not a blunt end scissor, so you can get into those corners nice and easy. This is why we're using a non-fraying, because if we use this in cotton, it would fray and it wouldn't be good. Something just fell in my room. As long as it's not a camera, I'm fine. All right, I'm gonna grab all those little bits. We're going to feed the strap in on here and bring this down. All right, so we're gonna top stitch this part down. I like to find my center, so I just fold it in half, finger press it real quick, lightly, and then we are going to we're going to put this on. It's figure number 8. We're going to do a 1/8 inch box, and we're going to find our center, and then we're going to measure up. I did have a marking tool. I just had my chalk and it just like disappeared. So I'm just gonna use one of these water soluble. Go 2.5 inches up. And I'm going to sew a box. And you don't want to hit your hardware, so just be really cognizant of it and be careful. You can use a little bit of double-sided tape in the middle, so that way it can hold it there for you in place. Oops, it would help if my hands have lotion on them, and whenever it does that, it could be the worst. So you're just gonna finger press that down. All right, move these clips out of the way. And I'm going to sew a little box at 1/8 inch around. When I get to the hardware, I sometimes use fabric, or I kind of use the material like I'm right here, right beside me, so that way I know I won't scuff up the hardware. Back stitch really well. And sometimes I get really as close as I can, and I'll just pivot and just kind of back stitch all the way down. Like I will go here and then I would start back stitching, so that way I'm not ruining anything. And I'm going to just draw an X, or you can put a rivet, whatever's easier for you. See, I'm just going in reverse, and I'm going to put a little bit of X. And back stitch 1 or 2 stitches to lock it in. And if you wanted to, if you're like, hey, I don't like the white edges coming through my vinyl, you can get things like fabric markers. This you can get at Amazon, sometimes your local Michaels or your quilting shop, and you can just color it in, and it will help you give it a more seamless look. And they dry really quickly. And surprisingly, I always tell people you will do really well with fabric markers, especially if you did any kind of coloring as a kid. And you're done. And it looks more cohesive. You don't see any white pieces showing. We're going to grab our lining piece of the pocket, and we're going to clip it together. We're going to go up, across, and down, not sewing the bottom edge, because that's where we're going to flip it. Back stitch really well at the beginning and end. The seam allowance is on the very beginning. It does switch from like top stitching to seam allowance throughout the bag, but I always highlight the seam allowance when I start any pattern, so that way I know what I need to go back to if needed. Okay, so you can clip your corners in, so that way you can get a nice crisp look. Just don't go into the stitching. I'm using a pair of pinking shears. Pinking shears kind of spread out the fabric bulk. It's one of my favorite tools in my sewing room. I use pinky shears pretty much on everything if I can. I'm going to turn this pocket right sides out, I mean. And just poke out those corners nice and gently. You can use a non-blunt instrument, back of a screwdriver, bone folder, whatever you have handy. Nothing sharp. You don't want to poke a hole through the marks and things that you've just made. Okay, it's nice, and the corners are nice and poked out. You can, if you want, you can take this to your iron and give it a nice little press. You can finger press it into place as well, like I'm going to do. All right, then we're going to do 1/8 of an inch top stitching. You could do 1/4, whatever top stitching you like, just at the very top, so that way it can hold the lining in place as well as give it a nice, clean, professional finish. That looks really nice. Trim those threads. I have threads pretty much everywhere. I say trim, but then I'm like, oh, don't forget to throw those threads away. Then you're going to grab your front of your bag. The front should have some foam. And you're going to find your center. So while you're here, I'd say fold this in half. I'll put a couple of clips, move a couple things around so that way my table is not overflowing. The bad thing about having industrial machines on tables is the table doesn't actually allow for you to have a lot of room, unfortunately. But I'm not going to complain. All right, so with that, we're going to find our center on here. We're going to put these two together real quick. I'm using waterproof canvas. I like the way waterproof canvas works, especially if I'm having mixed with foam and it's for electronic. I can give it kind of gives a little bit more protection to any electronic, I feel. We're going to clip the bottom down below, connect the V's. You can use double-sided tape if you wish. We are going to sew down 1/8 of an inch down across in the top. Now, what I like to do is I like to come in at an angle, like a 90-degree angle, go back and forth, go up, then down and across, up and come at an angle again. So this area that gets a lot of tension on it from like putting your cell phone or whatever, it is now going to have some reinforced stitching. This will be a good pocket for snacks too. I try to make snack pockets in every one of my bags. Okay, so we're going to go for it. At just an angle, it kind of looks like a chicken foot. That's the way you want to look at it, and go straight. And I go backwards, just one stitch off, just to have that extra reinforcement. Okay, and then we're going to pivot. We're going to pivot again, and I'll let you see how I do this angle. We're going to go up. And right before I get here, I'm going to kind of go in and make like a little triangle. So go off. I'm going to go all the way off and go back on, reverse. Then I'm going to pivot back straight. And I'm going to go one stitch off and then go back on. And that just gives it a little bit of extra reinforcement. And who doesn't need that in a backpack, right? And we have this nice piece. So now we're going to start making our zipper pocket that's in the front of the flap. You're going to want to get pattern piece J, C. There's 2 for C. And I just had I. Where did you go? I'm going to get my decoration piece so I don't forget. And there's I. And then you want to get your zipper tape. I'm using a size 5 zipper tape. And it's this beautiful baby blue with gold accents. And then I'm going to get a zipper pull. So the good thing about size 5 is it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. You can put your 2 main pieces on without having to have the zipper in your way. So I'm going to first kind of milk my ends of my zipper tape. My zipper tape is always a little bit long. It's fine. I'm just going to line everything that goes to the left. So I'm going to take this over and I'm going to sew using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm back stitching the beginning and the end. All right, then we're going to trim these, and we're going to fold this on itself, and we're going to top stitch. We're essentially top stitching the fold that we have down. Okay, then I'm going to grab piece J, and we're going to do the same thing. Bring it over. Okay. We're going to top stitch again. We're going to fold this up towards the end. You don't want to fold it under. And if you're working with like fraying fabric, like what I'm using, like vinyl or waterproof canvas, you can't iron it, so you can finger press it. You can iron definitely cotton or canvas. Sometimes I see people ironing cork, but cork sometimes needs moisturizing so that way it doesn't crack. So I personally don't iron on my cork because I don't want it to crack. but that's just my personal experience. Everybody else has something different. So I have my zipper pull on there. And then now we're going to take piece C. And we're going to put them right sides together. And it's okay if it's a little, it doesn't match perfectly, because we'll even it up at when we're done putting these on. Finger press. I'm going to also trim off my zipper tape. I don't need this part anymore. That's those beautiful things about those coils. You just cut them. We're going to do the same thing on this side. And you can put clips in to hold it in place if you wish to. I like to live dangerously sometimes. No, you'll see me put a ton of clips when it comes down to a curve, because I don't feel like my skills are 100% okay for curves sometimes. We're going to press this on itself using our fingers. All right. And we're going to just trim this up. What I find it easiest, the way to trim is kind of fold these down on itself. And then I could just trim this to be flush. You could draw the line if you wish at that point, or take it to your cutting board and use the rotary. There's a lot of ways you can do it. Whatever works easiest for you. I'm at the table, so I'm just going to cut it. And then this is where you could put your handmade logo if you wish. I'm going to put mine at the top. And I also wanted to stitch this in place real quick. I wanted to make sure that there was enough clearance, so that way I can, when this gets curved out, it'll be fine. So real quickly, when I'm trying to find my centers, I do the same thing as last time. I do a little V. Finding your centers are generally the key to any good bag making. I feel like it. Everyone's different. Personal preferences. So I'm going to grab my chalk that seems to keep wandering. And I'm just going to draw a line so it could be in the center. And I'm drawing a line because that's where I'm going to have my medallion. And I'm going to grab some double-sided tape real quick. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be enough to hold the patch in place while I'm sewing. And it just shows you what you could do too when you're sewing. I seen these patches on Etsy and I was like, ooh, I want one. And here at last I start. So I'm going to sew stitch in the ditch. It's easier than it looks. I think I make it look a little bit difficult sometimes. Take your time around curves. Oops. See? Making it difficult. Okay, we're almost there. And we're going to back stitch off. And I want to get all these threads. Okay. Getting all these threads. And then I'm just going to singe the threads down back and back. All right, so we're going to get our pattern piece. I want to say W. I believe it's W. Yes. And we're just going to line the top of this on top, and we're going to stitch, you just stitch 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, whatever you want, all the way around to make it a pocket. All right, so we're going to trim these threads. Get them real quick. And then we're going to grab our pattern piece that has the 5-inch template. And we are going to make a marking around it. So I'm looking for a pen. I'm going to use this fabric pen because my chalk pen just keeps disappearing. I'm like looking at the camera and not at where I'm supposed to be. That you can't even see. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Let me see. I need to put a necklace on my fabric pen. That's what I need to do. You can take this to your table if you want to have a pattern weight on it. And then we're going to put the pattern piece aside for right now. And I'm going to go in and sew like 1/8 of an inch away from the white chalk, in towards the white chalk. So within the seam allowance, so they can stay basted together. And I'm just going to bring the stitches over real quick to this side. Within, not on the outside, because if you put it on the outside and you cut away your stitches, then you did it all for naught, because then you're going to have to do it again. And I'm going to cut on the white chalk line. We have our really cool flap that has a nice big pocket. And then we're going to grab our piece. I believe it's piece F. Hold on. I want to double check. Piece D. I apologize. For some reason, my phone did not film the next part. You're going to take pattern piece D. You're going to put it right sides together with the flap we just had, and you're going to do your seam allowance, and then you're not going to top stitch. We top stitch at another date. So our next thing would be getting our buckle. The buckle pattern piece is pattern piece I want to say L. Yes, I was correct. It's a little bit wider than the one that I made. It is about 1 1/4 of an inch. I do like the 1 1/4 of an inch. I feel like it gives it a snugger fit inside the buckle, and therefore your merchandise is a little bit more secure. I just made mine a smidge smaller in width so that way it could slide in there without any kind of buckling or bunching. So let's go back to that. We're going to take our webbing, and I'm going to melt my webbing. This is polyester, so I can melt it. And I'm going to put it inside, in between the two lines of my, I can't try buckle. Words are not my friend today. I'm just going to put some double-sided tape in between. You can use glue if double-sided tape gums up your needles. I like to use Beacon, or sometimes I use Elmer's glue. I know it sounds funny, but it works. And I'm going to wedge it in between the two. And I'm going to just make sure I get that a little bit more even as I possibly can. And we're going to stitch. We're going to go around it at 1/8 of an inch first. I like to start my stitching actually towards the back of this, so that way it secures the webbing nice and easy. I use glue to put these two together. I use Elmer's glue and just let it dry overnight. I'm notorious for letting things dry overnight. And then when I get right here, I'm going to do another row of stitching just across and back stitch. So that way that area with the webbing is nice and secure. You could put a rivet there if you wish to for decorative purposes and for some extra reinforcement. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to place, you're going to punch out your holes, and I'm going to place this with a little bit of the webbing hanging out. So I'm doing about 3/8 of an inch or a 1/2 inch hanging out, and I'm going to find my centers. This is why we did the notch in the beginning, so we know. And I'm just going to back stitch, catching everything. All right. Do not cut that overhang down. It will help just keep it there like reinforcement. So we have everything going around looking really good. Okay. We're now going to be making this really cool pocket. What I like to get is your pattern piece that is your cutout. I like to, again, we found our centers. I'm going to find my centers in here. I'm just going to crease it, and I'm going to line it up. Just making sure that it all lines up with the center. And I'm just going to put a clip on either side because we're going to do some tracing. I had a pen. Okay, so you're going to, if you know me, then you know I lose pens often. I'm going to take a air erasable pen and I'm going to draw the inside of this box onto the right side of pattern piece D. Take the clips off, and I can still see the line. It's faint. I know it may be hard for you to see. I'm going to cut out this piece, and I know that's scary because you're so close. Your flap is so close to being done, and you're like, I don't want to mess up. Completely understand. So you're going to stitch around, and then we are going to snip as close as we can to the stitches without cutting the stitches. Now, if you cut the stitches, yes, it's sad, but you can go 1/8 of an inch around again, and everything will be okay. It won't be too much of a difference. All right, so you snip in, it's without cutting the stitches, and then okay, sorry about that. I had to switch my server because my internet's acting spotty. So you're gonna snip in to your lining, and you're going to bring it to the back, and then you can iron this if you're using woven or canvas. If you're using waterproof canvas or cork, and your lining is not, I'm using waterproof canvas, so I just finger pressed it towards the back, and we have a nice clean surface now. We're going to then take one of our pattern pieces O. There's two. We're going to fold it on itself, so we can create a nice clean closing of the pocket. What I like to do is, again, you know me, I love double-sided tape. I'm using regular, this is like a tearaway. It's like a water soluble. It's not permanent double-sided tape, and that helps with gumming. I like to put it to the line that I'm about to fold. I love that. You could tear it. And I'm going to fold that line. Now, I'm not going to fold the other O1 or iron it, because when you do a zipper, there's a 1/2 inch, sometimes a 3/8 of inch difference. And if you both put them onto the same amount, they may not line up. So there's that. That's just my take. Everyone's take is a little bit different. I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to grab my other O piece so it's handy. And we're going to grab our zipper. And since I'm using a size 5, I need a zipper pull. So I'm going to grab my zipper pull. And what I'm going to do is, while this is facing me, I'm going to flip it so right sides are up and the folded is on the other side. And I'm going to sew on the top of this 1/4 of an inch. Now, you can put some clips, pins, if you're using cotton, in while you're doing this. Another trick I've seen is some people use 1/8 of an inch tape, and then they'll, oh, let me crease my stitches. Use 1/8 of an inch tape to hold it in place as well. I'm just going to grab my snips. Get those threads, and then we're just going to bring this and press it to this side. So you want to press your zipper to the wrong side. We were at the right side. Now we're pressing this zipper up to the wrong side facing. I am going to use some double-sided tape because we're going to adhere this pocket to that opening that we just made with the nice pretty L facing. I think this was so clever, and it's a very unique pocket. It's like a nice talking piece. And I want to have my zipper pull facing, I want to make it go to the left. You want your zipper pull to go the same as the pocket. I will show you in this next step. I'm going to put the zipper pull on first. This is one of my favorite things about size 5 zippers, is you can put so many different kind of pulls in, and you can take your time and really get it in. And just like looks. There's so many different colors out there, and it's just nice. So when we grab the flap, we're going to be putting this on. You want your pull to be facing the same direction. So if your pull is going to the right, you want your other one to go to the right. If it's going to the left, so on and so forth. There's no real wrong way to put on a pull, but it's just easier this way. We're going to remove this double-sided tape. Sometimes this particular tape doesn't like to stick to nylon because it's not really sticky. It's weird. I love it for that, but I don't. It's mixed feelings on that completely. So we are going to match things up. I'm trying to match everything up as best I possibly can. I can hear my dog itching his ear because his foot's going up and down. And we're just going to slowly work this. Take your time on this. Practice makes perfect, or progression. So like just fiddle around with it. This is why I like double-sided tape, because you don't have pinholes in it and you're just trying to maneuver it to what you like the best and have it look as even as you want it to. All right, but I think we got it. And we're going to top stitch all the way around and down. I'm going to move some stuff over. Kind of get squishy. That's why I like foam, because I feel like you can get a little bit more squishy with it. Do a back stitch. We're going to turn this and pivot it. And I'm just going a little bit and just maneuvering a little bit at a time to make sure that I have everything that needs to be put in there as best as I possibly can. Just aligning everything as best as I can, because that could be a little difficult sometimes. And when I get to my zipper pull, I'm just going to have the needle down and just zip it out of the way. You don't want it in the way and accidentally nick it and break a needle. That's not fun. Or flip clips off the table. All right. And then we have that. See, that's looking good. All right, and then we're going to take the other pocket. See, this tape is not really sticky. We're going to take the other pocket O. And we're going to place it on the top. So I'm just going to grab a few clips. And we are going to we're going to place the right side of down on the wrong side of the zipper, and we're going to pen clip whatever you have available in space, and we're going to just go across to hold this. Always back stitch. Zipper pull, just move it out of the way. All right. We're almost there. I'm telling you, there's only a few more steps and you'll be surprised how fast this bag comes together. All right, so we have this one flipped up in a ½ inch, but see how the difference if you don't have it, there's like almost a ½ inch itself. So what I like to, me personally, I like to make these even and flush because there is a difference in height. One zipper, the higher zipper is going to be a little bit shorter than the bottom. So then I'd like to put these together. Just fold it in on itself and you can, again, take it to your iron or double-sided tape or glue, or you can eyeball it kind of like I'm doing. And we're going to sew up the sides. I'm just going to lift this up a little bit and back stitch. Sorry, I'm like jostling you because my fabric is in the way. And I backstitch really well at the beginning and end because this is where we're going to birth the bag and you don't want any like rip stitches. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. So on this part, when I top stitched the zipper on the top part, I only went in 1 or 2 stitches on the top so that way I can move these little wings over and try to catch as much as the lining as I possibly can. If you can't get all the way up there, it's okay to have a small gap. Nothing will fall through. It'll be fine. Yep, fine. And now you have a zipper pocket. That's pretty cool, right? I thought this was super clever. I love the detail to it. We're going to put this on the side and we're going to right now grab pattern piece, the pattern piece B, which there should be 2, and pattern piece H. Where did you go? I just see you. Pattern piece H. There we go. And we're going to place these together. Back stitch really well between the end. And we're going to finger press and we're going to top stitch on B, not H. When I'm doing this, I like to just kind of spread my hand so it's nice and taut on both sides of the fabric so that way it doesn't collapse in on itself. Sometimes that happens. And I'm going to do that on this side. All right, and we're going to top stitch this. All right, so we have that. We're now on page 5, and we are going to get our O-rings, our 2 D-rings, and we're going to get some of our webbing. I'm going to get some double-sided tape. We're going to attach the O-ring first, and I just like to put some double-sided tape in the middle. And if your webbing has polyurethane, you can singe your ends. And we're going to put this folded onto each other. And I try to get it as in the middle as I possibly can. And then I'm going to grab another piece of tape and put it in the middle. And we're going to position this on top of our bag. The O-ring is... So I'm going to find my centers again. And then I'm just going to grab my ruler and make sure it is nice and centered. And then I'm going to make my mark at where it needs to go. Okay, I'm going to go around this with a 1/8 of an inch, and you can do an X. I usually like to do that. I like to do the X just for that extra reinforcement. I feel like it's a little bit more security. The 1/8 of an inch all the way around is plenty. It's a personal preference. I don't know. And I also like the way it looks. All right. Then we're going to grab our connectors, our D-ring, and we're going to put them, make sure that I have these match up. Yeah. We're going to put them down below. I have mine a little bit longer because I like to have them, I don't know, I like them a little bit longer so that way they hang off just a little bit. But because this is going to hit the bottom, it's going to wind up being a little bit more flush, but I'm going to have like a 1/2 inch hang off. And I'm going to try to sew as close as I can to the hardware without hitting the hardware. Because my hardware always likes to rotate, and I don't know why that bothers me, but it does. Do a few back stitches. All right. Well, now we're going to put these together. We're going to base these on. I'm going to have like roughly about a 1/2 inch hang off. Get my tails, and I'm just going to back stitch over. And I'm going to grab my other one and do the same thing. I'm just going to just carry the stitch on over. Oh, this is going to look so awesome. I love these colors. It didn't take that long to cut out. It took me forever to find the color scheme that I want for the bag. Let's see. Then we're going to place the right sides together for our bag. And we're going to put a few clips and we're going to sew down each long side. Make sure that everything is going in the right direction, that the pocket is, you can go into the pocket and then the hardware is right on the top. Okay. Back stitch. I usually, for this area, I'll do 3 or 4 back stitches. You can put as many as clips as you need or pins to do this on the side. I'm just going to roll this in so it doesn't bump you. And then we're going to bring this over, trimming. And if you're using a non-woven like me, you can finger press the seams. It helps when you're birthing and just give it a nice crisp cleaning look, just a real clean look. All right, and then we're just going to finger press this open, and then we're going to get the bottom of the bag that we just put the base with the foam. We found all of our centers. We're going to clip these centers now onto the bag. Use as many as clips as you want, or as few. What I like to do is I like to clip all the corners first onto the bag that we have so that all the right parts are meeting. Open up the seam allowance on the sides so to make sure that it's evenly distributed. Do the same thing. Now we just start clipping in place. You can use as few as clips or as many as you want. It's really your discretion. And I know you're saying what I'm thinking probably, like, why isn't the foam on the other side? Sallie Tomatoes, they created something really cool that I know I'm now going to incorporate in different bags when I'm using foam. One main piece of the foam is on the exterior and the other part is on the interior, which gives it a really nice feel and weight to the bag. So once we get here and it's starting to not like wanting to clip because we have round edges, just clip into your, make small snips into the body of your bag, not your base. And by doing this, it will give us a little bit more wiggle room to spread out the bulk evenly. And just use nice sharp scissors. And don't go past the seam allowance, and it will all come out evenly distributed. It also gives it a nice clean fit too. I like the way it looks when you like snip into the curves. It just looks really good to me. I'm just snipping in little baby snips. Okay. And I'm just clipping around the curves and watching clips fly off. Just little snips. Don't snip into the webbing either, because you don't want it to unravel and fray. And let's go. And just clip around. Take your time with this. Breathe, relax. There's no race. Slow and steady wins the race, right? All right. So now we're done clipping, and you can do this a couple ways. You can go from the inside, or you can put your bag base down. And because it's foam, and you know how I love foam, it just can kind of squish out of the way. So we're going to do our seam allowance first, and then we're going to do a second row of stitching about an 1/8 inch shorter than our seam allowance. This is brilliant. If you ever get those stitches that stretch out when you turn a bag, this method helps with that tremendously. Not only does it reinforce it, it gives it a nice cleaner look on round corners. It just is brilliant. I'm going to grab my Sallie Tomato stiletto, and it's going to become my finger that I don't want to have in my machine. And make sure that those sides are nice and spread out, so that way you don't have to worry about it. And then I'm just going around. Take your time with the curves. And just squish your bag and move it around. That's the beauty of foam. It's resilient and it'll bounce right back into place. Okay, so we went around. Now we're going to go 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching that we did. So that way we can have a nice reinforced stitch. If you want to back stitch over those straps, you definitely can. It doesn't hurt it. I always like to back stitch over any place that has an open seam. I have no idea why. Okay, we're almost done with this part. And to me, this is the hardest part, and it's not hard. Sallie Tomato's made a really very good decision to have a double row of stitching, and I think it is incredibly smart. All right, so we're done. And to help the bag achieve its curves, you can cut in notches, or you can go not cut into your seam allowance and just go and pink around the rounded corners, not into either the seam allowances, stitches, I mean, just the seam allowance, and it will help give the bag its shape at the bottom. I love pinking shears. I love, 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 love pinking shears, because it goes from this being trimmed to spreading out the bulk. It's essentially the same thing as cutting out the triangles. Whatever I can do to make the job a little bit easier, I will. So we have all those trimmed out. Then we're going to add the back. We're going to add this right sides together. We're going to stick this on the back pocket. So you're going to kind of shove. Yeah, I just dropped a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to shove the right side of the zipper panel to the back. You're just going to kind of match the seams. Match the center points. And we're just going to clip. So that zipper should be hitting that top. And it's gonna, you have a lot of things going on here. You have your zipper pull, you have your O-ring, and it's okay. So just clip everything in place and reposition as needed. And I'm just clipping along. All right, so while we have that in there, we're going to sew our seam allowance. Now, this is the most crucial part. Do not sew into the side seams. You're going to start and stop before the side seams. And not knock everything down. Sorry, I'm just like, as I'm talking to you, bam, something else falls, something else falls. Now, when you get over to the zipper pull, you can take your time, stick your hand in there, reposition the zipper pull. Make sure your O-ring is down so that doesn't get in your way either. Just take your time, and I'm going to move my zipper pull down. Okay, and we're going to go here. Do not sew into your seam, just right next to it and backstitch. All right, I know it feels weird. It all comes together in the end, I promise. So we have that. We're now going to put together our lining. I like the lining in this. Again, it's pretty cool. One lining piece has the foam and the other one doesn't. You can add pockets to this if you want on the outside. You know, like what makes you a little bit more happy. And we're going to line this up. But first, our centers. First and always foremost, finding our centers. And we're going to get ready to sew this up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put the lining together very similar. We are going to put right sides together. I like to start 3/8 of an inch and then do a wider seam allowance and do the same thing on the other side. Then we're going to put the lining bottom in just like we did on the original bag, the exterior, and we're just going to trim up, trim. I like to catch my bag and have wide wings before I trim. And on the very top, I don't trim too much so that way I can spread out the bulk as well. Now there is an optional step in here for a ring, and I'm going to briefly talk about it. The ring is a pretty cool idea because you can put it on a hook. And it does give it a really cool rustic appear. You would grab a piece F and you would put it right sides together. Let's pretend this is the right side. The right sides together. You would line it up. You would do your stitching. You would measure down from the measurements below. Then you would line it up to the line right underneath it. You would do your stitching and bring it up. And then you would you could sew in the interfacing. And you could top stitch everything and you can have the ring. But the ring is optional, so it's up to your discretion on whether or not you want to do it or not. It's pretty I'm sorry, there's an echo. The explanation that's about right. The directions are very, very, very comprehensive and very detailed. So, but I will walk you through too. And I believe on Sallie Tomatoes, they have on their website how to install grommets, but I'm going to show you the actual grommet as well. So once we have this together, we're going to now put our bag together. So it's a lot of components, so bear with me because it's hard to get it all in one shot. But we're going to take our exterior bag. We're gonna hold on. So you're gonna want to clip. You're gonna put your bags right sides together, lining in, and what you're gonna want to do is we're going to sew from this seam to this seam. We're not going to go into the seam allowances or the seams. That part is super critical. You want to get as close as you possibly can to both seams. So we're going to start with, I'm going to fold this again. Why I love foam. Fold this out of the way, and I'm just going to bring this over and I'm going to stitch. Do not stitch in the seam allowance or in the seam. I know that's difficult and it seems like it's not quite right, but trust me, there is a method and it comes out beautiful if you follow these, just not going in the seam. So you have right sides together. We're working from the exterior. The interior is inside the bag. We're just pushing things out of the way. Seam to seam, and just when you move things around, make sure that your needle is down and you'll be okay. Get as close as you can without not getting in the seam. All right, we have one side of the lining and the exterior together. We're gonna trim some threads and we're about to work on the flap. So you want this to be out of the way. You could push it inside the bag, your pocket, because you don't want it to accidentally get sewed onto your flap. That would not be fun. You will become friends with your seam ripper and you so on and so forth. So we're going to go seam to seam, not going into that other seam stitch allowance, and we'll be okay. Make sure you back stitch well at the beginning and end. And let me just squish my bag in so I'm not knocking you around. my bobbin tails got caught. So I'm going to re-stitch. Oops, and then I didn't hold on to my bobbin threads. That's how it usually goes, right? Let me re-thread this real quick. All right. And get it through the eye. And now we'll start over again. And it'll be easy peasy off from this. Gonna squash down my bag. Again, beautiful theme about foam. You could make this with other interfacing fleece, or just using like Shape Flex 101 or a woven interface. It would look cool with, you know, a lot of different kind of interfacing, or even if it was just like all waterproof canvas, it'll be really cool to have as like a hiking bag, something that you can go camping with that's completely waterproof. And right when we get over this little tail over here, that is where the webbing is. I just like to back stitch a couple stitches. I know it's hard to see. I'm trying to get you a little further up. There we go. This bag is a big bag. It starts off at little smaller components and then it just gets bigger. But I love how big it is. And then we're gonna go all the way into the other seam and just take your time. Everything will fit. Not sewing into the other seam allowance, just getting to that seam. And that's back stitch. Okay. And what I do around this, you can do triangle cuts, or you can do pinking shears. There's a slew full of things you can try, but you can cut little triangles and it will help with the bulk of the bag and it'll help reduce. And I'm just going to trim up around the edge so that way I can help reduce bulk when I'm top stitching. Sorry, my puppies are on high alert when it rains out here, which pretty much is every day. Oh, to Maryland. And you do that on the other side too. Just don't cut into the stitches. That's the most important part. You don't want to re-stitch. Now, if you, let's say by chance you accidentally like got startled or something happened where you cut into it, just go 1/8 of an inch all the way around above that area that you accidentally sewn through, and you should be fine. Don't cut the webbing, just trim around it. All right, and then we get to perform magic. We get to pull out our pocket. And when you pull out your pocket, then because the zipper's open, that's really important part. You're gonna go through there and you're going to birth this bag. If you're using fleece or no interfacing, it could be a little bit easier to birth than with foam. Take your time. It's a big birthing hole, so you have a lot of wiggle room. If you want to have difficult fabric like me, it's going to be a little bit more patience, but it's all worth it when it's done. along. See, it's coming along. Magic. We're just going to put the inside in the lining inside the bag real quick. Helps if I take the flap all the way out. Just get all the everything nice stuff back in the bag. And take your time getting all the crevices and things turned. Shoving the lining back in. This is a big bag, so just bear with me. I'm going to definitely have some final pictures at the end and try to show you as much as I can on film. You're just going to poke out those little turns, make sure nothing is like kind of collapsed in on itself. Everything caught. Just rolling everything out. And this is, you can give it a nice press if you're using cotton. If not, then you have to continue rolling it out like I am. And then we are going to just close up this pocket after we make sure the flap is all poked out. All right, so we're going to take this pocket that we just birthed the bag from, and we're going to close it up. So first, I'm going to cut any rogue stitches. Not stitches, but threads. Don't cut any rogue stitches. Just going to open this up, and then we're going to kind of, because we created a seam allowance when we close it up, and just going to take a couple of clips and clip it into shape so that way I could top stitch at like 1/8 of an inch or 1/4, whatever you're more comfortable with, this lining close. Okay, so then we're going to top stitches close. Always back stitch. Just making sure everything stays aligned. Okay. And we're going to trim those threads. And then we're just going to put the pocket back inside the bag. And we're going to do some top stitching. All right, so the first top stitching we're going to do is going to be from corner seam to seam over here, not going into the seam, just from seam to the other seam. We're going to top stitch. And you're going to have to get squishy with it. I apologize. It's raining, and every time my dog hears someone, she's being really barky today. She has a lot to say. Seam to seam, and then you could put clips down to ensure that the lining doesn't bow up out of the bag. Let's see. I'm trying to squish down the bag. So you can see, just top stitching. Don't hold your breath. Just take it one stitch at a time, and you'll get there. Not a race. Seam to seam, and just squish things down. Don't go over the seam, a seam allowance for the next seam. Just seam to seam, top stitch, back stitch. All right, then we are going to sew around. We're going to sew around this flap. And I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and even as I possibly can. And then I'm just going to, any areas that are kind of like poking out, I'm just going to use an awl and just kind of rotate it with my fingers. And I'm going to put a clip there so that way it won't turn in on itself. It's heavier in the inside, so it wants to roll on itself. So a couple clips in place won't hurt it. It will help it. See, it's kind of rolling. And I'm just going to use my awl just to go in and just kind of pull it out from rolling it on into itself. Anywhere that it's doing that, just do that real quickly or slowly, go at your pace. I always say quickly, and I don't mean quickly. All right, and then we're gonna go seam to seam, and we're gonna top stitch this. So you're gonna get the bag all squishy again. I'm going to kind of roll this and flatten this down, and we're going to go from the seam on the side all the way across. Let me move these clips out of the way. Position right above it. And make sure you backstitch. And use an awl or a turning tool if you need to have something to help keep the bag steady. Take your time. If you do stop with the needle down. seen like a small little area that wants to roll on itself. So I'm just taking my time, turning the corner, and trying not to get clips underneath my way, but sometimes that doesn't work out for me, so I have to improvise a little bit. Oops. And back stitch, and we're gonna trim threads. Oh, I forgot one part, 2 parts. When we turn this, we needed to top stitch from here to here. We could still do that. It is a little weird in positioning, but it works out. If you want, you could put clips, so that way you know that everything is nice and taut and the lining's not shifting. But we need to sew from this end of the zipper to this end, and it will help keep the lining in place. You can do it from inside out, but you really need to trust your bobbin on that. And if you're like, no, I don't want to trust my bobbin, then we're going to do it from the outside. I'm just going to fold this out of the way, and we're going to get as close as we can without hitting the zipper. And I'm sewing at 1/8 of an inch away, just a top stitch, and I'm just moving all the other exterior of the bag away. As close as you can, and then just back stitch. And we have that part down. I one bobbin chicken. Okay. Yay. We have one more place is top stitch, and then we're done. I'm going to switch out this bobbin real quick so we can top stitch this last part. Remember in the beginning when I told you don't sew down that part of the flap, because we're doing it right now. We're going to top stitch it down, and it gives really cool dimensions to the bag, and it gives kind of like a quilting effect to me. At least I think so. All right. So this area right here where we weren't supposed to top stitch, we're going to top stitch now. Hold your tails. I have to remind myself, if I don't, then they get sucked in every single time. And I'm just pulling making sure the buckle's out of the way, and just pulling this nice and taut, so that way it doesn't collapse or fold on itself. I'm just going to squish down this bag because it's trying to bump the camera. It's a big bag, but it's easy to maneuver because of the interfacings, or the lack of interfacings that you want to use, if you want to think of it that way. So we have this really cool flap. I'm going to close the zipper, turn this around, grab threads that are sticking out. Going to put this buckle on. And we have a phenomenal bag. Look at this. There's so many cool features. You have this really nice front pocket. You have, well, you can kind of use this as like a hanger if you want to. You have this deep inside zipper pocket. You have a nice slip pocket and a big opening. So all we need to do now is put on our straps. So on your straps, if you have been a subscriber to my channel, you know that I'm really big on using materials for your zipper ends that are part of the bag, so that way you're not having to use additional hardware. It gives it a nice look. So I have that on each ends. You're going to want to get your sliders, and you're going to want to feed one part of your slider up and down the bar. Then you're going to want to take this to your sewing machine and not have your bag fall on you. You're going to want to take this to your sewing machine, and you're going to want to sew a X or a box, whatever you feel is best. And because if you did have using your scraps, I'm using some scrap waterproof canvas. It has like an additional thing for the bag to hold on to. And if I want to put rivets, it has that nice non-thread like frame fabric on there. And you can see I'm just like reversing to do the X, so that way I'm not hitting the needle is not hitting my hardware. Okay. And if you are using polyester thread like I am, you can go ahead and melt the threads if that is what you like to do. So we're going to take our bag. We're going to take our bag, and we're going to have where the tri-glider is out like this. You're going to feed the other end that doesn't have the tri-glider through, and then you're going to go up and over. And then you're going to put this on to your O-ring, and then you're going to sew that on. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a little box or an X. It's your call. I like to do the X. I have no idea why that's my preference. I don't know. I feel like it's more secure, but that again is my personal thing. I also like to do rivets. To be honest with you, I like to do rivets so that I don't have to sew the X. But sometimes I'll get a little snazzy, sew the X and put a rivet on either opposite side of the X. And I think it looks super cute that way too. Going to remove threads. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. Sorry, all my clips wanted to fly. We're going to take our tri-glider, have it facing you, thread the opposite end that doesn't have the tri-glide in through the D-ring, then up and over the tri-glide. You can get really fun with your webbing, and it can even be a step up for this classic bag already. I had some lanyard fabric and I put it on top of this cotton webbing, and I made the webbing look different. And I like doing special little touches like that. The details are so important to me. And I'm going to now sew this part on. Okay, trim the threads on this as well. And if you're using polyester thread, you can go back and hit it with the lighter to help it. So Oh my goodness, this bag is so cute. So you would have this bag just like this. Now, if you want to add the grommet, this is where you would go in. There are measurements about on the grommet on page 7. And there's also video tutorials in Sallie Tomatoes. You would go to that area that you had where the interfacing was. You would unscrew your grommet. Once you unscrew your grommet, you're going to have a male and a female part. Make sure you have like your screws inside like a scissor or a metal bowl, so that way you can not lose your screws. I'm notorious for losing them. And it's bad. I'm really bad at it. Like I need to have like a magnet underneath my sewing machine. So here's your male and here's your female. So I use the female as a template. I would draw my circle and then the 2 areas that have the screw. I would connect them, and let me just kind of show you on a piece of paper so there could be a better understanding. I would take my female, this is the bag, I would draw the circle, I would draw where the screws are, and then I would cut around. I would connect everything, and then I will cut around this area, and then I will be able to put my male through, and my female will have the entrance, enough clearance, and then I would put the screws back on, and then you have a really pretty feature to the bag where it can hold onto the bag while like opening, like you can put it on a hook while you're trying to load up the bag, so it's another pair of hands basically helping you keeping the bag open. As well as if the grommet is a good enough size, you can put your earbuds through it if you have wire ones and not wireless, and you can listen to stuff and everything's nice and protected inside your bag. There can be, I had a creative thing where I thought it would be pretty awesome if you had like a water bottle straw, and like the water bottle was inside the bag, but the straw came out and it can just be connected to you and you can grab it at any time too. So let your imagination run wild. There's so many different options you can do for that. I chose not to have the grommet, and we have this really, really cool bag. It is such a unique shape. I have never seen a shape like this before. I had fun putting it together. I feel like Sallie Tomatoes does a really good job with their patterns. And you get something that's truly unique. I feel like this bag belongs in Tatooine and it's ready to go. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I will be putting pictures of the bag. I will be putting pictures of the bag on after this, so you can see the whole bag outside and indoor, so that way you can get a better feeling for it. But I think this bag has the potential to be so many things. Like I said, an overnight bag, a vacation bag, a hiking bag, a yoga bag. I'm stuffing my kids to my mom's house, and this is their weekend bag. This is a cool bag to have. It could be a really nice if it's done with some faux leathers or crocodile or like some vinyls or corks, and it could be for work, and it could be perfect for the subway and what have you. Because of the buckle, it's hard for someone to try to get into your bag, and it's yet a nice stylish feature. So I just want to say thank you for joining this ride for me, and I hope that I was able to assist you with making the Ava journey. If you have any questions in reference to this bag, please comment down below. If you're on Sallie Tomatoes and you see some other patterns that you would like me to make a video for, please put the comment down below, and I will just definitely ask Sallie Tomato if I can do a tutorial for it. I will have the link in the subscription box, and if you use my code That's So Nova, you can get 10% off the pattern. It is an affiliate code, but you get 10% off. And if you were like, wow, Shnova, I've been trying to make this bag for like ever, and I never did, and I'm glad you did the tutorial. I want to do something for you. I do have a Ko-fi. If you want to buy me a Ko-fi, I will have the information in the description box as well as pinned in the comments. So if you like, subscribe, and comment down below. You help this channel tremendously, and I truly appreciate you. Until the next time I see you, I hope you have a wonderful day Happy sewing. Goodbye.